Yo, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the locker room. We are back, and so is football. And today we are going to be going over the week one matchups that happened on September 11th. And today I'm not only going to be doing that with me, we're going to be doing it with my guest, Cody Yurkovich. How you doing today, Cody?
Doing pretty good, man.
Football is back. It is great to be alive. It's always the best week of the year. We watched pretty much every game together, and oh my God. Was it a crazy week? Was it not?
Definitely a thriller of a week. Definitely going crazy over that Bengals Steelers game, but what a first week back. Definitely can't wait for week two.
Yeah, I mean, on Tuesday there was no football on, and I wanted more football, and
Yeah.
I wanted fantasy, and I was constantly looking at my team, even though there was nothing to do. So I just love football. I love watching it, and so do you. So we're gonna get on here and talk about the week one matchups. So how about we just hop right into it? We will start with the opening game of this year. And it was kind of a letdown. You had the former Super Bowl champions up against the Buffalo Bills, who were predicted to go to the Super Bowl this year by many people. And Buffalo just blew them out 31-10. I mean, the Rams did not look like themselves. Sean McVay, this is his first time being under 500 in his entire career. So if you're the Rams, this has to be a big wake up call. So, Cody, what was one thing that you saw from the Rams that really did not look good? Like, what was one thing that you think that they need to improve on?
In terms of their offense, I still think that they did pretty solid on their offense. You know, Cooper Kupp got a touchdown. They were moving and grooving pretty much the whole time. Matt Stafford did pretty all right. Could have had a better game. Um, Nonetheless, they did only score 10 points, so you can argue about that. I do think that their defense could have been better because obviously they got, you know, scored a whole 21 times, on top of
31.
what they had. So, not really their line, but in terms of their zone coverage, I think they could be better with that. And just in terms of the defensive side of the ball, I think that there's things that they can improve on. Some offensive as well, but they got a pretty loaded offense. So I think it's their defense, and hopefully it's just a bad first week and their heads out of the guard for the second week.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams were known for having a dominating defense, and Aaron Donald, I feel like, was shut down. I don't know if I heard the announcers call his name one time. I feel like he did not have a game that he would be proud of, and I don't feel like he lived up to the Aaron Donald hype. I mean, he is the best defensive tackle in the league, and the Bills did neutralize him. Then again, you are going up against Josh Allen, who is my number one quarterback in the league, going up
Hmm.
against a great offense. Stephon Diggs is great. We'll talk about him in a bit. And then on the offense side of the ball, you just need to limit the turnovers. I mean, you need to limit the turnovers. You need to capitalize off the turnovers. You need to capitalize. You had two interceptions. You had a fumble recovery. You need to capitalize off those to be able to win football games, and they did not. And then you cannot turn over the ball in critical situations. Stafford, two of them were his fault. A couple were tip balls, but overall, not a great game from the Rams, and I just feel like the Bills outplayed them in every aspect. So now we're going to give,
Easily.
yeah. So moving on, we are going to give our winner and loser for every game after we talk about it. So right now, Cody, give me your winner and loser for the Buffalo Bills versus the Los Angeles Rams.
All right, so my winner, I chose to take Stephon Diggs. Um, Definitely could have taken Josh Allen, but I feel like Stephon Diggs definitely had a thriller of a game on both the fantasy and NFL side of the ball. Really, really great on making those receptions, getting those yards. His chemistry with Josh Allen is honestly one of the best quarterback wide receiver relations in the league right now. And my loss would be Cam Akers. Same thing as Aaron Donald, not really showing his name too much during the game. Kind of slow. Even their starter, Darrell Henderson, had him on my fantasy team. Went for a cool little, I believe he had a 9 point game. So definitely ran the ball a little bit, but the run game wasn't too on point. So obviously Cam Akers wasn't going to get too much ball time. So definitely an L for him.
Yeah, and even with the running game wasn't as strong as it is, but Cam Akers was the weakest point of that run game. He was coming off a torn Achilles, but he did not look good last year when he came back, and I don't think he looked any better when he came back this year.
Yep. Hmm.
So my W, we're gonna see a lot of the same list. I did have Stephon Diggs, but I'm gonna change it to Josh Allen for my winner simply because when I went back and watched the game on the highlights and stuff, when Stephon Diggs was lined up against Jalen Ramsey, Diggs wasn't burning Jalen Ramsey. It was just Josh Allen making a throw to where only Diggs could catch it, and it was throwing the receiver open, and he was fitting it in tight windows. Not only that, he was reading the coverage great. Like, for example, everyone blames Ramsey for that when he come up, but that's his zone coverage. Josh Allen read that, and he threw it over the top and beat the zone. So that's nothing on Jalen Ramsey. I still think he is the best corner in the league, but Josh Allen made throws that made his receivers open, which is simply why I have him at as my winner because that is very hard as a quarterback to do that. And then for my L, I have this guy on my fantasy team. It pains me. Allen Robinson, man. I don't know if Stafford's just racist and he only throws to white receivers, but there was multiple times where Allen Robinson was open over the middle, especially on that rollout one. There's a lot of times where Josh Allen was open and Stafford just either didn't have enough time or he threw to Cooper Kupp. And that's another issue that I'm gonna talk about with Derek Carr later on. But Allen Robinson got open, just couldn't get the ball and didn't haul in. He had one catch for 12 yards. Not a great game there. So that is it for Buffalo LA. Now we are on to our hometown team, but not our favorite team. We got Philadelphia versus Detroit as the Eagles did come away with the victory of a 38-35 win. Cody, what were your thoughts on this game?
So definitely, a very, very good back and forth game, good dogfight style concept. Lions kicking it off in Ford Field. Definitely hopeful of a home win for the week one. Obviously wasn't able to walk away with that. I think Jalen Hurts and the new AJ Brown overwhelmed the team just too much and were able to walk away with the 38-35 victory. Nonetheless, still a very great game. Enjoyed watching it. If this is what the Lions are going to look like the whole year, I honestly could see them walking away with a good 8 to 9 wins. Dan Campbell seems to be really shaping things up in Detroit right now, but we are going to get into the wins and losses from this game. So for my win, I put AJ Brown. Obviously first season with Philadelphia, and I think he couldn't have had a better game. Him and Jalen Hurts seem to be bonding right off the rip, and honestly took the spotlight completely away from Devonta Smith, who I'll get into in a little bit. Really great chemistry there. So really proud of him there, especially coming from Titans to where he did pretty moderate with Ryan Tannehill. Um, but for my L, I definitely put Devonta Smith. I swear this guy didn't even take the field that day. You did not hear his name one time. Definitely for a newer player, you think Jalen Hurts would be kind of favoring him a little bit more or throwing to him or giving him more targets, but it just seemed like it was the Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown show when we were watching that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every play when the Lions game turned on and they were on offense, I swear every time I was yelling, Jalen, 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 because they were just making plays. And AJ Brown was awesome that game. Jalen Hurts was doing everything with his legs. The thing with the Lions though is you can't. They score 35 points, but you cannot give up 38. They could not stop the run. You couldn't stop Jalen Hurts. You couldn't stop Miles Sanders. So, I mean, if you want to win football games, you're going to have to stop the run. And even through the air, they were not great. They were not that great. So, starting off with my win, you know what? I did have AJ Brown, but we just touched on him a little bit. So I'm going to switch over to Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had a very, very letdown year last year as he didn't even have a touchdown. And he comes out in this game against the Detroit Lions, rushes for 93 yards off 13 carries, averaging 7.4 yards a carry, and he got a touchdown. I mean, that's his first touchdown in 2 years. So not only did he rush very well, getting yards, getting good yards per carry on a decent amount of touches, but he also got a touchdown, which is very nice for him to see, along with 2 receptions for 9 yards. So that's why Miles Sanders there, just because he simply improved from last year very much, and he did look very good as a great talented running back. Then for my L, I have Devontae Smith, because as you said, it was like he didn't touch the field. I don't remember one ball getting thrown to this guy. Like, I was
Yep.
literally looking on fantasy. I'm like, oh my, I forgot that this guy existed, because A.J. Brown just took over, which I love to see because I have A.J. Brown on my fantasy team. So, but I mean, it was like this guy, as you said, was not even there. I mean, I don't even know if he got a target. He might have got one. I don't know if that's just Jalen Hurts not throwing to him or if he's just not getting open. So either way, it's going to be interesting to see how Devontae Smith is used in the future in Philadelphia. Moving on, we now have Indianapolis versus Houston, which the first tie of the season, 20-20. What are your thoughts on this game, Cody?
Didn't really watch too much of this game. Kind of a slower style game. Obviously took it into OT with the
There was not much of it on Red Zone, that's for
no,
sure.
definitely not. I mean, looking at the first quarter, we had 2 punts and a field goal. Going into the second quarter, we didn't even really pick up until late in the second with that touchdown. Um, but yeah, we didn't really have too much of a good game there. So in terms of the way the teams played, I think both teams did mid. In terms of Matt Ryan with the Colts, I think that he's looking really good, especially of the age that he is, coming from the Atlanta Falcons. You know, new team, um, new receiver core, new head coach, new team to play with. Period. I think that he did really solid. Him and Pittman seem to be bonding pretty well. Obviously JT is just going to be JT. Um, but going into the wins and losses, I had Davis Mills for the win. Davis Mills is kind of just like that good mid-tier quarterback. In terms of the Texans, he's a pretty good bet for them. Didn't have the greatest game. I remember watching him week 1 of last season, and he just had an absolute field day. Did numbers. Not as good as his performance last year, but still very good mid-tier performance. And in terms of my L, I think it's pretty obvious we got Rodrigo Blankenship on the board, who just recently just got released for, I think it's pretty obvious
No
that we
one
know
claimed him.
why.
That's interesting. No one claimed him off waivers, so he is still a free agent.
Yep. Free agent. Pretty good kicker. I'm not too sure what happened in the game. I don't know what, but obviously missing that game winning field goal was enough to take the Colts off for them to release him. So whole team was resting on his back, 3 points, and couldn't get it on the board. So, not saying that the whole loss is his fault, but definitely missed that clutch moment right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these two teams, it was like I thought the Texans were like up 20-3, if I'm not mistaken. And next thing you know, it's like 20-17. I'm like, what the heck happened? And that's really one of my biggest complaints with the Texans is I always feel like they're in the lead, but then they just cannot finish. They cannot finish and win the game, which is very
Sounds like the
frustrating.
Falcons.
And the Lions,
Yep.
a lot of teams, but they just couldn't finish, and that's very disappointing. Which is their defense did step up when they did get closer, and they did get some big stops to get this game a tie. But I did not like the call by Lovie Smith at all to punt it down. You have nothing to lose at that point. I mean, you're not expected to make the playoffs. Sure, it's week 1, but what was it, 4th and 4 at midfield, and they decided to punt it instead of going for it and try to win the game. I think that's very conservative, and I do not like that play call at all. But getting out of my wins, I was gonna go Davis Mills, but then I looked at Michael Pittman and saw his stats, and he did great. I was not as high fantasy wise on Michael Pittman as everyone else was this year. I thought he was getting drafted way too high, but boy, he proved me wrong this week. He had 9 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown. And it seemed that every play he was getting open, which was a very, very good sign to see. He was getting open, he was making the catches, and he was easily Matt Ryan's go-to target. Now, for my L, this might be a little unfair because it is his first game, but it's going to be Dameon Pierce. And it's not that I'm expecting a huge workload for Dameon Pierce. It's just that when he got the ball, he did not make that much happen. I mean, 11 carries for 33 yards. I mean, I expected a lot better for that. I'm not expecting 20 carries, but 11 carries is a decent amount of carries for a rookie, and only getting 33 yards is a bit frustrating because I do have him on my fantasy team. I didn't start him, but I also have a Florida guy, and I really, really like Dameon Pierce coming out of college. So just wish he could have done better, and he's going to go in my loss category. Now moving on to Baker Mayfield's return to Cleveland Baker Mayfield playing his former team at Cleveland, at the Cleveland Browns. He didn't play in Cleveland, it was at Carolina. So 26-24, Jacoby Brissett defeats Baker Mayfield in his game against his old team. What are your thoughts on this game?
Um, Kind of same case as the Colts and Texans. Not really too much going on here. A lot of turnovers, a lot of punts, a lot of interceptions. Um, in terms of Baker's return, the hyped up rivalry game between Baker and his former team, I think it was all built up to be shot down once we got about halftime. Um, Baker going into this game with all this talk, talking about how he is going to beat his old team, but Mason Garrett, sorry, not Mason Garrett, I can't even think of his name. Garrett, Miles Garrett,
Yep, there it is.
had something else to say about that. So definitely kept a lot of good pressure on Baker. Brown's defense is Brown defense, really good there. In terms of wins and losses from the game, I definitely decided to go with the Cody York for the win.
Cody York, the rookie.
Feel like every time you're kicking a field goal, you see that guy's face, see that points made, and obviously he was able to clutch it up in the end, pulling in those last couple points to steal Baker's fabled comeback, fabled W to turn it into a loss. So I think that's pretty huge on his part. We got DJ Moore. DJ Moore was a pretty huge name last year and years before that. Going into this year, you think, this guy's going to be doing pretty good. New quarterback, shouldn't be too big of a problem. Definitely got favored. CMC was back, so obviously they're running the ball a little bit more with him. Robbie Anderson back in the game. Baker's definitely throwing the ball a lot more to him as well. And I feel like DJ Moore kind of got pushed off to the side a lot more than what I would have liked. Not only because, he was on my fantasy team, but I think that Baker should be using DJ Moore a little bit more since he is a pretty good weapon that the Panthers provided for him.
Yeah, I do think he's the best receiver on that team. No doubt about it. And then for me, my winner is again going to be Cody York. I mean, it's hard to make a field goal in the NFL as it is, but to make a 50-yard plus field goal as a rookie in your first game for the win, that's just 10 times harder. So I just got to give him his props, and he is my winner for that week or that game. And then for I'm going to go CMC. I mean, getting drafted number 2 overall in drafts. I get it. It's his first game back, but man, we need more production out of him if we are going to be drafting him number 2 overall, in my opinion. I mean, what do you have? He had 10 carries for 33 yards, just 3.3 yards per carry. He did have a touchdown, but looking at the yards per carry average, that is not great. And then out of the backfield, he had 24 yards off 4 receptions, so not terrible, but we expect more from him, so that is why he is my L. Moving on to the Chicago versus 49ers, also known as the Rain Fest. What are your thoughts on this game, Cody?
Going in, I feel like the Bears didn't really have too many high hopes. It is a home opener, but then again, the conditions on the field were absolutely just
Terrible.
terrible. Looking like a whole rainbow out there.
Rainforest Cafe.
Definitely Rainforest Cafe ended up there. Niners obviously made it late into the playoffs last year, so you think that they're going to be these top dogs. There isn't too many things that we can take away from this game. The conditions on the field were absolutely horrible, and they were playing in the rain for half the time. So yes, San Francisco lost and only got 10 points. And And I feel like half of that is to blame on the weather, but we'll find out in week 2 if San Francisco is really good or really bad, and if Chicago can keep up the name of undefeated. So Trey Lance, definitely have to give you my L. Come on, dude. Like, what are you doing? Not really
Yeah.
doing too great. Didn't handle the pressure from the Bears defense at all. Um, kind of looking a little bit stressed, a little bit tense. Definitely thinking that he needs to get better with his pocket game. Um, but who knows? Maybe it's just a good week. I'm hoping that the Niners don't regret their decision of benching Jimmy Garoppolo for Trey Lance. Almost getting rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, might I add, but they did end up keeping
Yeah, that's
him.
interesting. Where if he does get traded, where he'll go.
Exactly. So, I was actually just seeing this um post the other day, or actually today, and who I think it was Sean Payton. He was on an interview and he made a prediction for 2 NFL quarterbacks that are going to be benched either early in the season or like kind of halfway to late in the season. And Trey Lance was one of the 2 of the players on that list. So maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, we might see a return from him if Trey Lance can get his shit together. Um,
Yeah, I mean the thing is,
going over, what were you saying?
you drafted him number 3 overall, and I get there was bad weather conditions, but you drafted him number 3 overall, and he's still not playing well. Reports are that he has not been playing well in practice. So if you do have to go to that route to bench Trey Lance for Jimmy Garoppolo, who is known to be an average quarterback, that is a very rough sign if you're the 49ers.
Yeah, definitely. Very bad decision on their part. Obviously, Eli Mitchell just getting injured, so it's not adding fuel to the fire
Out two
whatsoever.
months.
Yeah, so Niners not off to a hot start whatsoever, but maybe they'll rebound in week 2. Who knows? W. I'm gonna give it to my boy Justin Fields. Definitely been an underdog since they drafted him. Kind of between him and Mitch Trubisky. Uh, Justin Fields got a lot of hate. Didn't really seem too good out there. Definitely still not where he should be, but definitely better than what he was last season. Going into the game, I feel like he did pretty well in terms of the conditions and the stakes of the game. Obviously was able to clutch up those 2 touchdowns and some field goals sprinkled on top of there to walk away with the dub. And we got that nice little slip and slide
That
victory
great photo of the
at the end of
year.
the game.
Photo of the year. That was an awesome photo. That
Mm-hmm.
photographer needs a raise.
Yep.
For me, my W is going to be a actual kind of interesting one because Cody, he is on your fantasy team, but he was not starting. He was actually on the bench, and that is going to be running back Khalil Herbert. I mean,
Yep.
he did not get the most of the carries, but he gets 9 carries for 45 yards, averaging 5 a carry, and he got the touchdown. I mean, sure, he didn't get the workload that David Montgomery got, but I think easily he outplayed David Montgomery. He was running harder. He was lowering his shoulder. And more importantly, he was getting more yards than him. And he ultimately got one of the game-winning touchdowns that progressed them farther to beat the Niners. I mean, he was part of the reason they got that upset. I mean, he had 45 yards off 9 carries. That's really well. And no one was expecting it. That's a big thing, too. So, moving on to my L, I have Trey Lance as well. Parts of what I spoke on, it's just because of how I knew he wasn't going to look great, but sure, the weather's bad. Next week, we will really tell what he can do, but he just did not look great. I mean, he had a really bad interception that was thrown to Eddie Jackson that was ultimately the game right there, and he did just not look good at all. I mean, maybe a couple flashes with his legs, but overall, I thought Justin Fields outplayed him by a mile, which is not good for this year's number 3 overall draft pick who just took the job of someone who took them to the NFC Championship. And now moving on to the Washington versus Jacksonville game. Cody, this is one of those games where we were like, Carson Wentz, he's doing good. And then Carson
Right.
Wentz turned into Carson Wentz, throwing
Yeah.
those interceptions. And then we got down to the minute, we were like, wow, this is a close game. And then they threw the Hail Mary, and then bad
Trevor
decision.
Lawrence threw the game in the bag.
Trevor Lawrence made a bad decision, which hurts my heart. But overall, what were your thoughts on this game?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know too much about these two teams because they have not been the greatest in the past, so I didn't really bother to pay attention to them. Washington coming off with a nice little win, NFC East, looking 3-0 across the board, except for the lonely Dallas Stars. But the Washington football team is looking pretty solid in terms of their week 1 going into their week 2. We'll have to see what happens there. But honestly, over the past year or two, they've been definitely building up some notable players on that team in terms of Curtis Samuel, who had a pretty good week so far and was picked up by fantasy players around the league this week. And then also got Scary Terry, who was good, tying into from last year. Carson Wentz, new addition, coming into this year. Not really thinking that he would do too great. Kind of went on a downward slope from Philadelphia, went to the Colts for a year, wasn't too hot there, went to the football team, and not really having too many high hopes for him, but ended up having a pretty good week 1. So that is why I'm going to crown my win to the one and only Carson Wentz. Like you were saying before, did throw those interceptions. I think that he had a really solid first game, though, in terms of yardage and pass completions.
He had a really good fantasy week, too.
Yeah, fantasy week. Really good points there. So
4
I'm
touchdowns.
Good on touchdowns as well. I think he had,
4.
I believe, 2?
He had 4.
4. Oh.
4 throwing.
Yeah, huge on that. Really so let's see if he can keep this momentum up going into week 2. Going into my loss for that game, we're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence.
Ooh.
Not really a huge fan of him, not gonna lie. Not going into me being a hater just because I put him in an L. Yes, the Jaguars were a complete mess, not even getting into the whole Urban Meyer situation. So Trevor Lawrence being around that stigma did not help him whatsoever.
Not at all.
Jaguars got the new head coach, so hopefully Trevor Lawrence can have kind of, I guess you could say, a redo this year. I don't really want to count last year because the Jaguars were absolutely horrible.
They got the first pick in the draft 2 years in a row. That's hard to do.
Yes, and they still start off 0-1.
Yeah, I mean,
not by much, I might add, but
it hurts with the Trevor Lawrence for the L because I am a huge T-Law fan. I think T-Law is going to have a great breakout year. He wasn't terrible, but he by all means was not great. 275, a touchdown, and interception. If he could have went down there and got that game-winning drive, then he would have probably been my winner this week. But as a rookie, as a second-year player, he just hasn't been able to get that skill set yet, and he just hasn't been able to accomplish things that he needs to accomplish. So he just needs to get there, and I believe he will this year. So for my winner, I have James Robinson. I mean, lot of slander on this guy fantasy-wise for the past couple months, not being drafted that high. He goes for 11 rushes for 66 yards. That's average at 6 rushes on average. And he gets a touchdown along with a reception touchdown. So, I mean, he was very effective in this game, got 2 of Washington's touchdowns, and he ultimately was the horseback, I feel like. Sure, Travis Etienne did have a lot of yards off very little carries, but Travis Etienne was more of a receiving back this game. And I feel like James Robinson really took the torch and just plowed through and was the main guy for Jacksonville this week. And then for my L, it's going to be Travis Etienne because he had 4 rushes for 47 yards. It was a great run on average, but ultimately he had a drop touchdown pass. Trevor Lawrence did miss him in the deep end zone, which is not his fault, but still missed him. And then he had a catch where he got rocked and he fumbled. And I just want to see more out of Etienne. I want to see him rush more and I want to see him get more touches out of the backfield because I do not feel that. How many did he get? 2. I do not feel that that's enough. I feel like he needs to be utilized more.
Definitely.
Moving on to the Miami New England game. This is probably the most boring game to watch, in my opinion, so we're not going to talk about it too much. So, Cody, who's your win and your out for this week?
Win taking the Dolphins D. Definitely
The
shut
entire defense shutting down the Patriots.
the entire defense, holding them to only 7 points.
Now, is that a win? Is that a positive towards the Dolphins defense or a negative towards the Patriots offense for you? If you
Definitely a negative towards the Patriots offense,
fair enough.
including the don't quote me on this. It was a blocked pass which turned into a touchdown recovery by one of the D linemen.
It was, yeah, he got hit as he threw, and the ball came out as a fumble, and then, yeah, Melvin Ingram recovered it, which really turned the shift of the game.
Yes. So being that close to your own end zone and making that mistake is really huge in terms of like throwing the game. So you just gave them 7 points right there, and you literally did nothing. Better. So Mac Jones needs to be getting better in the pocket, needs to be getting better of his awareness, needs to be getting better. And it's that just includes grounding the ball, tucking the ball with him if he's getting tackled. But you can't let mistakes like that happen to you, which is one of the reasons why I'm crowning the dub to the Dolphins D. That was a really huge good thing for them. Also, just shutting down the Patriots offense in general, which they should definitely be a lot better, especially under the Bill Belichick rule. Going into the L, we got Chase Edmonds. Nothing really much to say here. Kind of a slow, quiet game. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were definitely having a higher game, to throwing to them a lot more. Chase Edmonds not really being used that much. Coming from Arizona, this is going to be his first game with Miami, and after that first game, hopefully in a week 2 game, we'll see him being used a lot more. But in terms of a week 1 stance, I just think he was kind of quiet, shut down, and underused.
Yeah, going on to my win, I'm going to give it to Tyreek. And it's not because he had a great game, but it's simply because Tua had a lot of bad throws that Hill caught, which made Tua look good. So I don't know if that's more of a slander on Tua or a win on Hill, but I'm going to give it to the win on Hill just because he made some great catches. Then my L is Chase Edmonds, just like the reasons you said. He had 12 rushes for, I think, like 20 yards or something. That is not good. That is not what you want to see. And he had 4 receptions for 40 yards out of the backfield, or out wide, receiving. So, I mean, wasn't terrible, but for all the hype he's got, I just want to see more out of him. Moving on to the crazy game, Pittsburgh versus Cincy. 23-20, Pittsburgh came out with the win. What were your thoughts on this game, Cody? I mean, we predicted the missed field goal, which is very funny.
I don't have enough to say about this game, to be honest. So, biased opinion, I have Joe Burrow on my fantasy team. So if I slander him a little too much, that's why. My loser for the game is going to be Joe Burrow. There you go. Starting off the game, very first throw of the season, picked off for a pick 6.
Pick 6.
How do you let that happen on the first throw of the season? And not only that, you think, okay, fine, first pick, whatever. Goes on to throw, 3 more picks? And fumbled?
4.
So 4 total picks, and he fumbled, I'm pretty sure. Not really good. Steelers defense was all over the Bengals. Their offensive line did get a little bit better, but TJ Watt definitely overwhelmed Joe Burrow. Got taken out of the game right before I went into overtime. Definitely feared to be a torn pec, so I wish him a speedy recovery. But going into the speed of things, Steelers defense capitalized on the lack of Bengals offense. They were still able to kind of gain some ground between Chase Edmonds. Joe Burrow did pick up his pep in the second half of the game and going into overtime as well. him and Chase Edmonds have a really good bond with each other, and I'm really glad about that. T. Higgins doing really good. Joe
Jamar Chase.
Mixon. What did I say?
You said Chase Edmonds.
My bad.
You're good. You're good.
Jamar Chase. Still got Chase Edmonds on my head. And then Joe Mixon too. Definitely could have been used a lot more. Landon, I know you have him on your fantasy team, and you're hoping for those end zone rushes.
Yeah, he got 27 rushes for like 82 yards, but then he had 60 out of the backfield. So just wish he could have got a touchdown.
Yeah, I think the Bengals, though, for week 2, they're definitely in for a dub. Bengals are definitely not a bad team whatsoever. They just got the short straw in terms of the field goal. I guess you could say competition, because it seemed like they were going back and forth and just no one was able to capitalize. It was kind of just a standoff, I guess you could say. But high hopes for Bengals going into week 2, and let's see if the Steelers can keep up the undefeated title.
Yeah, my win for this week is actually going to be on the defense side of the ball for Pittsburgh. I'm going with TJ Watt. Sure, he had the torn pec, but I mean, if you really think about it, he had the interception and he had a lot of pressures on Burrow, which caused him to get the ball out and throw those picks. And then Burrow fumbled, which I believe was off a hit by Watt. But if you noticed, right after TJ Watt got hurt is when the Bengals started getting their groove and started to be able to pick up the pace and start scoring, which was because Joe Burrow didn't have TJ Watt in his face. So, I mean, TJ Watt definitely a big impact on the game and probably the biggest reason why Pittsburgh was leading. And then for my L, I'm going to go Najee Harris. Sure, he did get a little banged up, but even that, I think he had like 20 yards rushing off 10 carries, which is not good. Not only was it a not good average, he was not getting the workhorse load that I want to see him get, which is really sad to see because I do have him on a fantasy team. So, yeah. And then a funny story. Cody told me right before the extra point was kicked, what are the odds out of 10 he misses it? 1, 2, 3. We post at 7, and then he missed the field goal. So we're responsible for the Evan McPherson missed kick. So
we will both take the blame for it.
So sorry, Mikey, but we're the reason your Bengals lost.
Yeah, he had nothing to do with it. It was just
us.
It was just the luck of us making a bet.
It was all us. So that was probably the most fun game to watch. And then probably another boring game. This was a game that I really don't remember seeing that much on Red Zone. Baltimore versus New York, 24 to 9. Baltimore won. And what was crazy about this? Guess how many times Joe Flacco threw the ball?
0.
59 times. That is absurd.
59.
For a man that old throwing the ball that many times.
I forgot Zach Wilson was out.
Yeah. So, wow. Zach Wilson.
A lot.
Zach Wilson. We all know what Zach Wilson's doing right now. He
Flacco's completion.
But yeah, he had. I think he had 37 for 59. So threw the ball a lot. But anyways, my win this week is going to be Michael Carter from the Jets because he had over 100 yards from scrimmage and he really outshined Breece Hall as far when the ball was in his hands, which I do really like to see because I do have both of them on my fantasy team, which is a very nice handcuff. But Michael Carter, I've always liked him as a running back. So Michael Carter getting to show off his highlights and show off his moves, I thought was really awesome to see. And then for the L, I mean, it's not really an L. It's just more of I wish he could have done more, and that's Mark Andrews. Nothing wrong with his performance. I think he had like 50 yards. Just wish I could have saw more.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So,
going into the game, not really much was shown about it. Definitely a slow start. I think the Ravens got the first point. So the Jets had a pretty fair game in the beginning, and then the Ravens started taking off. I didn't think Lamar definitely had a slower start to the game, but finishing it out, he, had another superstar performance even after that denial of the contract extension. So we'll see what drama goes on between him and the Ravens. But so far he's, playing ball. He's playing good ball. My W going into it will be the breakout player of the game, maybe of the week, is going to be Mr. Devin Duvernay.
2 touchdowns. Very nice.
2 touchdowns, 100 plus yards. have yourself an absolute day. I saw a video saying that this guy's going to be the next OBJ. So that's definitely a bold statement to make off of 1 week. Definitely did shoot to the waivers right after that game. Made some bench movements, had to drop some people, but was able to capitalize on Devin Duvernay. And hopefully he'll be able to put up on a week 2. Definitely stands out in a lacking Ravens receiver core for sure. And with Lamar throwing the ball to him, I definitely think that he could be a really good, consistent player. So that was going to be my W there. My L, Kenyon Drake, just really wasn't going on too much, really wasn't too many rushing yards. I think it's just because Joe Flacco was throwing the ball the absolute entire time. So
Yeah.
that's just my take.
Yeah. So as I said, I had Mark Andrews and Michael Carter. Cody, you had Kenyon Drake and Devin Duvernay. So really a great game from Duvernay. I was actually really shocked by that. Moving on to New Orleans versus Atlanta. My win's gonna go to Cordell Patterson. A lot of hate going on this guy saying he's not going to keep up, but boy, you kept up. 120 yards and a touchdown. Really not much else to say. He proved a lot of people wrong this week. It's going to be interesting to see what he does in the future. And then L, it's going to be Kamara. I mean, did not show much at all. I mean, he didn't get that much touches, like 14, and I think he barely cracked 50 yards, which is sad to see because Kamara is a great running back. We've seen him do so many good things for the Saints, and it just wasn't there. And I really don't think that the Saints team was all that great. I do think that Jameis Winston could be better, and I think Atlanta outplayed them, but it's New Orleans got the win, but I do think Atlanta outplayed them. So who's your win and loss?
My win is going to be the Michael Thomas.
Back from injury,
So
gets 2 touchdowns. I hated
Flat
him this week.
Boy gets the W, gets 2 tutties. Not really that many yards, but that's 2 touchdowns regardless. After being out of commission the entirety of last year, not playing the preseason, and hopping back into week 1, like he's just fresh out of everything. But he's back,
He
and
is.
don't really know how to react about it. Maybe it'll just be a 1 week thing. I think that him and Jameis will have pretty good consistency. So hopefully, like you were saying, Kamara gets used more. Michael Thomas will definitely be consistently being used. Definitely late into the red zone, maybe not into much of the deep game, which is where 2 of his touchdowns came from. My L, just like you, Landon, the Alvin Kamara. 2 years ago, this guy was super, super good. Did pretty good last year.
He was pretty good last year as well.
Yeah, last year. Even then, he's a good top 10 running back.
Easily.
Very, very good draft capital. And going into this game, got shut out. Low performance. It's honestly even lucky that he's able to perform since the whole Pro Bowl situation, but we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was. Maybe he got his ass kicked. Who knows? But from that picture, it didn't look like it. It looked like he did the ass whooping.
Possibly, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Atlanta, Younghoe Koo got me 19 points. That was nice to see. So I might have put him as the win, but Cordell Patterson definitely outshined him. And starting off the late window, we have Arizona versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City getting the win 44-21. Wasn't a close game at all. My win going to be Patrick Mahomes, 30 for 39, like 350 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. Pat, I think, had the best week overall for a quarterback. I mean, what else can you do? It's Patrick Mahomes. He proves people wrong that he doesn't need Tyreek. All he needs is Travis Kelce. So, yeah, Patrick Mahomes continues to be Patrick Mahomes. Then my L is going to go James Conner. He did get a touchdown, but I was just really not impressed by the way he ran the ball, and especially on his yards per average. I did not think that was very good at all. I think he had like 12 carries for 20 yards as well. So I'm going to give my L to James Conner.
All right. Didn't really get to watch too much of this game, kind of going back and forth from it, but the first game that the Chiefs played without Tyreek Hill, and you might have missed it in a blink of an eye because you probably did. And the Chiefs did not miss a step. Chiefs are still the Chiefs with or without the cheetah. After taking a trip to Miami, still got Kelsey, and it looks like Mahomes is starting to treat his best tight end like more of a flex receiver position, which I'm completely here for. Really, really good on points for the fantasy, obviously because he's using him a little bit more as a receiver opposed to a tight end. Travis Kelsey, really good. Patrick Mahomes, absolutely just that guy's just crazy. Insane week one, amazing amount of points. He had what, five tutties?
Yes, 5 touchdowns.
Five touchdowns in one game. Who can do that
He won.
besides?
He won Jaden, who is our friend, who doesn't really pay attention to fantasy football. No offense, Jaden. He's not as into it as we are. And it pretty much won him the game because you have Mahomes and Kelsey. That's all you need. You get what, probably 40 points from Mahomes alone. I mean, it's insane. I mean, what one
Yep.
player can do for your team is pretty incredible.
Yep. And to add on top of that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a really good performance as well.
Yes, he did.
So going into my L for the game, I'm going to give it to Kyler Murray. Not saying that he had a bad game at all, but I just think that he could have had a better performance. Throwing for under 200 yards, which is unlike him, and really didn't see too many run attempts from him as well. So I think it just him kind of getting into the swing of things, still kind of getting used to his team.
Might not be watching that film. You don't know.
Kyler's not a bad quarterback. I had him on my other fantasy team. He did all right for me. He wasn't anything too standoffish, but I think that going into week two, hopefully he'll have a better performance.
No,
And the Chiefs
he's playing the
definitely shut him
Raiders.
off.
He shouldn't. Don't have a better performance.
Why are you going against him?
No, he plays the Raiders. So keep sucking, Kyler. Keep sucking. All right. Anyway, moving on. Now we got the painful game. Los Angeles Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And Los Angeles picks up the win 24-19. My win's going to be Justin Herbert. Herbert was almost flawless when he wasn't throwing in Nate Hobbs' area. I think he had like 30 completions, almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, can't ask for a better game out of your third-year quarterback. Then my L is going to be Austin Eckler. It's not that he did bad. It's just that it's not the Eckler we know. Eckler should have had a better game, and Eckler, we do not hold Eckler up to that standards normally. So that is why I have Eckler at my L.
Yeah, watching that game, I had a lot of high hopes for both teams. Mostly because my second favorite team is the Chargers. Mostly because Herbert's there, and I'm a huge Herbert fan. So the team that they're able to build around him is honestly really great, and I love watching them play every single week. The Raiders, definitely a good sleeper team in terms of Devontae Adams getting there finally. My W is going to be out to Devontae Adams as a Packers fan. You know, it was really nice seeing him there with a different quarterback and kind of just seeing the chemistry that he could have with someone else. Didn't have the best game, but in terms of his first week with a new quarterback and a new team, definitely put up a really good performance, and I'm excited to see what he'll offer in the coming weeks. My L is going to be Mr. Derek Carr. Didn't have a terrible
Lost him
game,
the
but
game.
I'm sorry, what?
Lost him the game.
Yep.
3 interceptions on 3 underthrown balls. You can't do that.
I mean, he's got a really good receiver core in terms of run throw. He's got Darren Waller and then Devontae Adams as well. Josh Jacobs running the ball here and there as well. But I think the Chargers defense and in terms of Carr throwing the ball just didn't really formulate that well. The Chargers, though, super, super great. Like what Landon was saying, Justin Herbert, flawless game. Seemed like when he was starting to give Keenan Allen the ball a ton, his name was starting to get said a lot. He went down for an injury. So then he started favoring giving the ball a little bit more to Eckler. And I had Mike Williams on my other team, who was kind of shut out throughout the entire game, only had, I believe, 4 targets, and he had 2 receptions. So his neglect on Mike Williams was not the greatest, but those are my takeaways.
I mean, yeah, looking back at it, Derek Carr, the thing is with Derek Carr, it looked like every play he was trying to go to Devontae Adams, and you just can't do that. I know you want to go to Adams, but you have so many other weapons, you can't force the ball to him. And then as well, when the pocket's collapsing and no one's open, he either needs to throw it away or he needs to run the football because him holding on to it and taking the sacks doing no good either. So things you need to improve on there. Now moving on to probably an exciting game in the late window. New York Giants getting the victory over the Tennessee Titans 21-20. Cody, who is your winner and loss for this one?
My winner will be the Saquon Barkley.
Absolutely.
Welcoming back from the injured 2021 season. He was
I must say,
out.
he was the most exciting player to watch this week.
Yeah, definitely very exciting, very explosive, very gifted running back to watch. That guy's explosive. He's got a lot of power. Watching him return in this 2022 season opener was a thrill because he got screwed over with injuries in the 21 season. So not many people were able to use him in fantasy teams, but, got free, got picked up by fantasy teams this year, and wasn't thinking too much of him, but had a very amazing breakout game. Him and, Daniel Jones just keep handing it off to him, screen passes, but all around, Saquon, amazing game. Congratulations on that. And the L will be to my boy Robert Woods. Don't really know what happened there. So coming off a little injury after being released from the Rams, and he goes to the Titans. You think, hey, Robert Woods was used pretty well in the Rams. Maybe he'll be used with Ryan Tannehill as well, seeing as he's a pretty good quarterback. I was wrong. He was on my other league and got probably a solid 3 points for me. Completely just shut down the entire game. Ryan Tannehill was throwing to all his other receivers except for Robert Woods. So in that case, he is moving to the bench. Probably will be a very underproductive player moving forward throughout the weeks, which was unexpected on my end.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon, so fun to watch. That was awesome. I would have picked him as my winner, but my winner is going to go to the first game head coach, Brian DeBull. He had the guts to go for the 2-point conversion. And what's awesome about this is he told his entire team, Cody, before the drive even happened, that they were going to go for it and that they were going to go for 2 no matter what. So that was really awesome. So they already had that planned out. He had the gutsy call. It was awesome. So I'm going to give my win to Brian Dable. L, Derrick Henry. He had like 8 fantasy points or something. Did not do that well. I mean, and he got the wood laid on him by blanking on the name, but it was the linebacker out of Georgia. But overall, Derrick Henry did not have a great game. It felt like he was getting shut down, and he did not look 100%. Moving on to the Green Bay game. We have Minnesota taking the victory 23-7, Cody. Who is your win and loss?
I'm sorry, for what game the mic cut out for a little bit.
23-7 Minnesota over Green Bay.
Boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say about this one. Being a Packers fan, Packers underperformed as expected. Losing Devontae Adams in the postseason was bittersweet, and the receiver core was left empty, with Allen Lazard moving up to the wide receiver 1 slot and not even getting the opportunity to play in week 1. Definitely took a kick to the gut on that one, which means our new wide receiver 1 going into that week was either going to be fought between Randall Cobb or Sammy Watkins, because Christian Watson wasn't going to do crap. So Randall Cobb underperformed. Sammy Watkins, first game with the Green Bay Packers after they made the waiver wire pickup for him in the postseason. He had an all right game, but definitely no one can compare to Devontae Adams in terms of that team. So I'm not too sure what they're going to be doing in the forward weeks, but we definitely need to pick up a new offensive weapon. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are going to be really great moving forward, and I can see that they're going to be flexing them a lot more, putting them in the slots a little bit more, and passing to them because Aaron Rodgers can trust them, opposed to some of his younger receiver core. Hoping that Allen Lazard can come back for a week too, but that's just me. Also, the two starting offensive linemen, including David Bakhtiari, both were not in the game as well. So Rodgers was a lot more under pressure, got sacked, I believe, a solid 4 times. Rodgers threw a pick, which was the very first pick that he threw against a divisional opponent since 2019. Pretty crazy stat there, and got smashed because Rodgers was under pressure, I feel like almost every other snap. So scrambling out of the pocket, receivers can't get open and doesn't have anyone trustworthy to throw to. Christian Watson, guaranteed walk-off touchdown dropped right at the beginning of the game, was a heartbreaker, and Packers just never recovered from that. And I'm hoping Aaron Rodgers and the receiver corps can find a happy medium. Nonetheless, my W is going to go off to the Justin Jefferson. That guy, you just can't keep him chained, run around the place, and he's just so gifted for how young he is. Hitting the gritty for that little first tutty in the end zone was the honestly really cool start to the NFL season. Really enjoyed seeing that, and went off in fantasy this week as well. So many points for that guy. Kirk
Absolutely.
Cousins giving him the ball. Packers defense is letting him get wide open because that's just what they do best. Like literally one play, just leaving him wide open in the backfield because that's the best decision, I guess, on their part. You literally watch the safety shift to the other receiver. I don't know who was out there, but you literally watch the safety shift over and you see Justin Jefferson wide open in the backfield. So, of course, he gets thrown to. And my loss is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Not saying that the whole game isn't at his fault because we were able to make it into the end zone for one touchdown, thankfully, and then got a field goal as well. But don't want to put the whole responsibility on the receiver corps. Aaron Rodgers does need to adjust as well because he can't throw that many deep passes because he doesn't have a gifted receiver as Devontae Adams to throw to. So he's going to have to switch up his game, even though I was just reading this thing on ESPN. Rodgers saying, and I quote, "I'm not going to change the way I play." So there you have it, folks. There's our 4-year quarterback.
Badass.
Rodgers is standing his ground, making the receivers form around him. So we'll see what happens there. Hoping that there's not too much in-team drama, and really just need our over linemen to get healthy. Really need Lazard back in the game so that we can kind of get a grip on how our whole season is going to look.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my L gonna go the Packers wide receiver corps because they just played terrible. So they couldn't get open. They were dropping passes and they weren't blocking well. So that's all you need to see. And then Justin Jefferson, absolutely almost over 200 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. I mean, this man could not be stopped. Packers had no answer for him, even against one of the best corners in the league in Jair Alexander. And these next couple, we are going to hurry up a bit because we are running out of time, but I do want to touch on the Seattle game a bit longer. So we're going to go through this boring Tampa game a little quicker. My win's going to go to Fournette just because he had over 120 on the ground, looked very solid, looked like a true RB1. And then my L's going to go to Dak, 1, because he played terrible, and 2, he's now out 6 weeks. So that's the Dallas game.
Definitely a huge letdown going into the first Sunday night football game of the year and thinking that the Buccaneers are all this hot shit after Brady comes out of retirement after 2 months. Not even. He's like, 40 days?
Yeah.
40 days. Man's retired for and came back to the Buccaneers without Bruce Arians. But now he's higher up and kind of overseeing the team from a executive point of view. Mike Evans is still there. Chris Godwin's still there. Leonard Fournette's still there. But the W this week is going to be, I'm going to say Leonard Fournette as well. I'm probably going to sway over to Mike Evans just because he was on my fantasy team and had a classic Mike Evans performance with that injury scare as well. But he was able to thankfully escape from that, get a nice little toe tap tutty in the end zone, and get a cool little 15 points with getting, I believe, 80 yards. not too bad of a performance right there. And my L will be Dak Prescott. All this talk going into the season, like always, the classic Cowboys style right there. And just really didn't put up. Cowboys offense got completely shut down, and Dak Prescott getting injured did not help out with that.
Yeah, not at all. Dak did not look great, and now he's hurt. So moving on to the Seattle game. Seattle versus Denver. 17-16, Seattle got the win. Geno Smith looked absolutely great. He's my win. And then I was going to go Nathaniel Hackett because he literally lost him the game. I would rather give Russ a 4th and 5 than a 64-yard field goal, Cody. I bet you can agree since I believe you have Nathaniel Hackett, don't you?
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, and who is your W?
My W is going to be Geno Smith as well.
Yeah, Geno Smith looked great. I won't say he looked great. He looked good. But an interesting conversation to bring up, Cody, is if you're Russell Wilson, do you call that timeout? In your first game with your new head coach, should Russell Wilson call that timeout and give himself a chance?
Yes.
I like that call because there is a lot of things. I heard this on one of the radio shows I listened to. Russell Wilson should call that timeout, but it's also like, if he calls that timeout, it's like, okay, I'm in control. I'm running this offense. And it's kind of a big middle finger to Nathaniel Hackett. And I don't know how Nathaniel Hackett will take it. The media is going to explode it. And it's just going to surround so much drama around the Broncos if Russ did call that timeout. So that would have been a very interesting thing to see play out.
Easily.
Yeah. So what a great week of games it has been. So we were going to do a top 5 fantasy players, but we unfortunately did run out of time. So maybe we'll do that next week. But if not, I will just put it at the end of the video for you all to see. So that is going to be it. What a great week of football. Had a great time watching it. Cody, thank you so much for coming on and talking football. It is always awesome having you on the show.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Fun. Yeah, no problem. Football is happiness. That is all there is to say. So without it, we will gonna see you guys next time for our week 2. Peace out.